All right, guys, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up all of your credentials because let's just be honest, it's a long list. But my name's Heather Harrison. If you guys are jumping on, if you're new coaches, welcome to our team call for Tuesday night. It is April 13th already, I think. If I'm mistaken on that date, forgive me. Just a couple quick updates, you guys. April, May, and June, we have that huge promotion going on with all the fun giveaways. So please be using your digital bat. I won $250 last week in fun apparel. So it is fun and it's very simple, adding people to pod groups and using your digital bat. So you can always transfer at the end of the day. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor because Scottie had me talk on his call last week. And here's the thing, you don't see a lot of forefront male coaches in the spotlight because let's be honest, it's a very, very heavy woman-run business. But Scottie has been a coach for the last 10 years, right?
Years. I just had my 10-year anniversary 2 days ago.
Yes, and you wrote that. That post is amazing. So he was a top 10 coach in 2013. He's been a husband for the past 14 years, elite, 6-time elite, 2-time premier, Success Club, 10 All-Star legend, 120 consecutive months. He has, it's crazy. He's 14-star diamond, 8-star in his second CBC, diamond in his third. His wife is a 1-star diamond. He's in the Million Club, or we call it the Legacy Club now. He has a 7-figure earner for the last 4 years. 2 personally sponsored Million Club members, 3 total in his downline, and he's a former CAB member. So what can you get out of Scottie tonight, right? But no, in all honesty, I just truly enjoy watching him and his journey because I will tell you, he is not all the fluff and the fancy and the filters. He is all about changing lives and helping others change lives. And it 2 years ago, he had the winner of the Beachbody, what is it called?
The Beachbody Challenge winner, the $100,000 challenge
winner. And it was amazing to watch because I think that was the last, was that the last summit we went to?
Yeah, that was the last live summit.
So it was incredible, and to see the transformation was insane. So Scottie, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we are just going to let you talk and speak your heart. And I know you and I went over a few things, but I'll let you do your thing.
Cool. I'm going to talk fast tonight a lot, but if you do have questions or comments, please just unmute and ask or stop me. I'm totally okay with that. And I will also put up my chat box so I can see what you guys are talking about as I go through the questions later. But I'm going to start with a little of my story in case you guys haven't heard it before. And to be honest, I love telling my story because that's where it all started for me. This whole journey I've been on now. So I'll be 40 this summer, and I've been a coach for 10 years. So it's like a quarter of my life I've been doing what we're doing right now as Team Beachbody coaches. So, but I want you to know where that started. A couple of things. As I tell my story, I'm going to kind of cue you to why I tell my story in certain ways sometimes so you can learn a little of storytelling. I'm probably the least organized coach you'll ever meet, but I have huge visions. I know how to set goals, and I have the most positive mindset no matter what goes on. And then my superpower, as my coach Lindsay Matway says, is consistency. And it's like there's no special sauce like your coach just shared, Heather. I don't use filters. I'm not fancy with anything I do, but I just show up every single day and do what we're supposed to do. And doing what we're supposed to do is what somebody did for me back in 2010. How I got introduced to P90X, just to let you guys know in the shortest story possible, is, we had 2 little girls at the time, and I gained weight with my wife. I wasn't obese by any means, but I was about 40 pounds overweight. And this guy knocks on my door, and he happened to be from our church. Because my wife and I were inactive from church. We weren't attending church at all since we'd been married. So they're trying to bring members of the church back. So he knocks on the door, and I let him in because he has a plate of brownies. Okay. and my wife's at work because she worked nights. And so I just have my two little girls. They're like ages 2 and 4. And so I invite him in and we're just chatting. And like, I'm just in awe because this guy is like 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", and like 240 pounds of solid muscle. And I'm like 190, just fluffy, chubby. And he had two little girls. As I was getting to meet him, turns out he was new to our neighborhood. And obviously he had this calling from the church to help bring inactive people back. But I just had to ask him, I was like, dude, you and I'm 28, you're 28. You got two little girls, I got two little girls. You look like that and I look like this. Like, what are you doing? Like, you got to tell me your secrets, man. And it turns out he was the strength training coach, and well, he formerly was the special teams player for Utah State University football team. And he got a job in our hometown as the strength training coach and the special teams coach for one of the high schools. So that's why he moved to Idaho into our neighborhood. So he did what every single one of us as coaches should do. He's like, I can help you out. Like, let me help you. Let me help you. Because I said, like, I was inspired by him, what he looked like, and like just how he was as a person. Asked him what he did. He told me what he did, and he said, I can help you out. So he invited me to come work out with him and the other high school kids at the gym, because he's a strength training coach. He's like, let's just get you started on lifting weights. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. What time do I have to be there? And he told me to be there at 6:00 a.m. And I was like, dude, I wish I could, but I work every day from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I can't go at that time. Is there anything else I could do like from home? And he's like, do P90X. So that's where it all started for me. What I want you guys to know, he's not a coach. He's not a Beachbody coach. He just knew that P90X was a home fitness program that was proven to give results if you followed it. So I printed out the meal plan, got the DVDs. I'm not going to tell you where I got them from, but I got them. And I started on my P90X journey in May of 2010. And one thing to understand about me, because, success leaves clues, as we talk about a lot of things today, is when I commit to something, I follow through with it. So I printed out the meal plan, got my DVDs, and I started. And in 90 days, I lost 38 pounds and I had abs for the first time. And I just started, like, I put my before after picture on Facebook, and I didn't really use Facebook other than post pictures of when my kids were born, or like a Memorial Day weekend camp out. I would post pictures of us camping. But I put these P90X pictures up, and honestly, there was a lot of haters that were like not a fan of before after pictures and that stuff. But there were people that were inspired. They're just like, man, like, what are you doing? That's so awesome. And I fell in love with obviously doing the workouts and the results that I got, but I fell in love with responding to these people, like inspiring them, answering their messages, and just telling them like, hey, you got to try P90X. Because they'd come to me and be like, man, I need to lose 30 pounds. And I would just tell them like, you got to do P90X. And it was just fun. I was like, you know what? You're probably going to throw up and get dizzy on your first day of chest and back. And they're going to do so many pull-ups and push-ups, and you're going to throw up, but just do it. It's going to be awesome. If you stick with it, I know you can lose the weight. So I fell in love with that process. I didn't want to annoy people on Facebook. This is just me. I'm not a coach. I'm just someone using the products and had results with them. So I created a Facebook group called the Staying Fit Family. We can call it maybe the first ever challenge group. And anybody that was inspired by my results or were asking questions, I would just add them to the group. They didn't have to buy anything. They didn't have to even be doing P90X or Insanity. They just needed to have the desire to get advice and start to change their life. And so I started inviting them, helping them inside of there. And I was in love with that process and that whole thing of like checking into that group and seeing someone say like, hey, I notched off another hole in my belt today. Or someone saying like, hey, I went from a size 8 dress to a size 6 or whatever it was. I was in love with that process. But something happened. I put my P90X before after pictures in the P90X like page. I'm just starting to learn social media really outside of posting on my own timeline. And I put them on the P90X like page. And that day I was like, I'm never going to be a Beachbody coach. That is the most disgusting thing ever, whatever it is. And the reason is because I had like 30 copy and pasted scripts, we'll call them, or messages come into my inbox on Facebook saying like, hey, I saw your results in the P90X like page. we're doing a webinar this Thursday night to talk about the coach opportunity. Would you like to come? Or would you like to do a 3-way call with my upline coach? And I'm like, what the is an upline coach? What is a webinar? What is a webinar? Like, I didn't know what any of that was, but I was like, oh, that sounds like super scammy and that's kind of disgusting. So it's funny. I wrote on Facebook that day. I was a big gamer prior. Like, I played Call of Duty all the time. And so my lingo was a little bit different. And so like I wrote on Facebook, I was like, if any of these Beachbody coaches could convince me to become a coach, I would absolutely destroy it. And like, it's funny, I don't talk like that anymore, but I said that because I knew the programs worked, because it changed my life. And I was helping people with those programs in my little group. And I knew that if I committed to something like this, whatever this Beachbody thing was, and follow through with it, I would be great at it, because anything that I commit to, I follow through with the process, and I'm willing to learn, and I become great at most everything that I've ever done in my life. So I'm like, I'm never going to be a Beachbody coach. But one thing I want you guys to know, this will lead really into the 10 questions I'm going to have you guys ask later. Around this time, as I'm starting P90X, I don't even know, prior to knowing about this Beachbody coaching thing, like what I'm learning about it, I didn't really learn anything. I'm just like, I'm not going to do that thing. I had written in my job on a piece of paper in my office, I wrote down, I want to retire at the age of 50, have my house paid off, and have a $1 million in the bank. That was my life goal and dream. And it was before I ever became a coach. So I had this vision and this dream for what I want. I wanted to work hard, retire at 50, have $1 million and no debt. And so that was like a vision for my life. And I had it far before Beachbody ever came along. And so the funny thing is, as I'm learning, like I find out about coaching, I'm curious, because I'm working 12-hour days from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. My wife is working at night from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So when I get home, she's already gone to work, and she drops the kids off at the babysitter. At 3, I pick them up at 5. And so like, I'm trying to build like all these little side business things. Like I worked in a steel factory, so I do custom signs. Like I design and custom signs, and I put them on Craigslist, and I start making a like page to like sell them. Buying and selling things on Craigslist. Like played Xbox a lot. So I'd look for deals on Xboxes. I would go buy them on my lunch break off Craigslist, clean them up, repackage them, take better pictures, and sell them for like a $40 profit. So I'm doing all of these things because I had these big goals and dreams of, my $1 million by the age of in my bank account by the age of 50 with no debt, and quit working. And so I'm curious about this coaching thing, even though I was like, that's disgusting. So I start Googling and watching YouTube videos from my job. And I watched a video from Lindsay Matway, and she does a little 360 video of her P90X transformation. She lost 30 pounds. I'm like, oh, cool. She lost 30 pounds. I lost 40 pounds. I get it. And then she goes on, like, looks at the camera, looks at me, is how I feel in that moment, and says, like, I had my boyfriend and I had our daughter London prematurely, and she was in the NICU, and we incurred a few $100,000 worth of debt, and I'm a bartender. And because I've been helping people with P90X, I've been able to leave bartending and be home with my daughter during this important time of her life. And I'm slowly paying off that debt. And like, I sat in my office that day and I'm like, wait a minute, a few $100,000, like, my mortgage is a few $100,000, and we bought a house that was way too expensive for us. And that's why I've been working 12-hour days for the past 5 years, working every Saturday, have my wife working nights. And so I'm like, maybe this is the solution or answer. So I email her, and I'm like, hey, these are my results, and tell me about coaching. And she calls me, and she does what we need to be doing as coaches. She asks me the hard questions. And that's why today I'm going to ask you guys 10 questions as a part of this. Is she asked me questions in that, it wasn't like a presentation, like, here's the company, this is when it started, these are all the products, this is how it was none of that stuff. It was asking me questions like, working in this steel factory, running a service department. She's like, is that what you always planned on doing? This is all the question. What does your wife do? And is that what she's always wanted to do? Right. And I'm like, they were all of those hard questions to where I'm like, no, my wife is not supposed to be working. Like, I'm supposed to be making enough to provide for the family. But unfortunately, it's not that way and she has to work. So she asked me all those hard questions. And just at the end, she basically said, like, Scottie, you're doing exactly what I'm doing. You're just not getting paid for it. Because like I told her I had a group and I had the results and all that stuff. And so we go on, and so I tell her no. Okay. And what I want you guys to understand is I told her no for 8 months. Like, she casually checked in on us when my third daughter was born. Like, obviously she commented on the photo, she checked in on how we were doing and all that stuff. And so, but what she did is she had her clear vision, and she worked hard on her business, and I watched her for those 8 months, even though I told her no each time. What I want you guys to understand is I just told her no. Like, I would tell her like, no, that's cool that it works for you, but it's just not for me. But in reality, it was like, okay, I don't look anything like Lindsay Matway. It's obvious that she could attract people online and build a business because she looks kind of like a supermodel and I look like me, right? So these are all these like limiting beliefs that started to pop up that I was telling no. I'm like, Art, I don't have enough time. I'm working 12-hour days. I'm working every Saturday. I'm making these signs for people. My wife's at work at night. And so I have little kids by myself at night. I just don't have time. So there were all these things. I didn't have internet in my house because we were so tightly budgeted. I didn't have a smartphone. So I'm like, how am I going to build an online business like her when I don't have a smartphone or internet in our house? Like, I had a little Nokia MP3 player phone. So these were all limiting beliefs, right? And so I kept telling her, no, 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 no. It's cool. That's awesome. I've been watching what you're doing. But on April 11th, 2011, which is 10 years and 2 days ago, I have this habit because I've kind of told you guys how busy our schedule was. I do the bills in the house. So I do a spreadsheet with like how much we have and everything that we spend on. And so when I would get the bills in the mail, I would pick them up on my way to work at like 4:50 a.m. from our lockbox at the end of the cul-de-sac. I would take it to work and I would go through, like, throw the junk mail in the garbage, get the bills out, put them in my spreadsheet. And I would do that on my break, on my lunch, a few minutes before the bell rang. Because when I got home, I had little girls to take care of by myself. So like, I was just like so time managed in that aspect. But that day I had the hospital bill. It's like 3 weeks after my third daughter was born, had the hospital bill, doctor bill, anesthesiology bill. And I just remember sitting in my cubicle and I felt like it just started to spin around me. Like, I felt this heavy weight on my shoulders, like, I don't know, kind of like I was drowning in a way. Have you guys ever felt like that weight, or it feels like the world's just like, or the room's spinning around you? And like, I felt like that because I was like questioning like all these things. Like, I'm already working 12-hour days. My wife works night. Someone's watching our kids 2 hours a day. And now we have like $3,000 worth of bills from this birth. Like, where is this going to come from? Because I'm a college dropout, by the way. I'm like, do I need to go back to school? How am I going to go to school and work 12-hour days? Like, all of these questions, right? Maybe my wife has to work a higher paid day job because she worked the night shift at the hotel. I'm like, maybe if she had a full-time job in the day, she could get paid more, but then we got to put the kids in all-day daycare and someone else raises their kids. And so all these questions were going through my mind. And that's the day, guys, that I signed up as a coach. When I was feeling like that in my office, I just realized this like coaching thing is here. Like, my answer is here. Like, how to get out of this situation has been sitting in my lap for the past 8 months. And it's just, now it's time to take action. And so that's the day that my fear of not knowing how to provide for my family became greater than my fear that I would fail as a coach, or that I wouldn't have the time to put in to become successful as a coach. Whatever success means to me, right? And we'll talk about what success means for each person as we go through questions. But that's the day that I became a coach. And I did my getting started right call from my neighbor's house. Remember, I don't have internet in my house. I used his landline for my getting started right call. I did my coach training academy, which was what it was called, in the coach online office, from his home office, from my neighbor's house. And I'm talking with Lindsay and I'm like, Lindsay, she's like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And I tell her, I need to make $10,000 with my Beachbody business. And she's like, okay, what, 10,000, why is that important to you? And I was like, well, my wife makes like 12,000, 13,000 a year working the night shift. And we pay like 2,000 or so in babysitter costs. So it's like 15,000. Like, if I could just bring in like 10,000, then she could come home from work. Like, she didn't have to work at night. And that would mean the world to me, because like, when I get home from work at 5, We could sit down together and eat dinner as a family, go for walks with the kids, kick the soccer ball in the front yard, hit baseballs, all that stuff, right? And so that was my goal, to make $10,000. And the why behind it was because first 5 years of our marriage, we worked separate shifts. We lived separate lives. And Lindsay tells me something so important. She says, Scottie, I can't promise you $10,000, but I promise that your income will be a direct reflection of the number of lives that you change. And so I'm like, okay, like I'll do it. Like I'll change all of the lives so that we can make that happen. And so I'm a numbers person, as you guys know from when I talked about my vision. Like I mapped out, I need to make $1 million. I mean, I need to pay off my house and be retired at the age of 50 with $1 million in the bank. The thing is back then I ran all the numbers. Like no matter how far I got up inside of the company I was at, and no matter how much I put monthly into in extra to my mortgage and then into savings, I could never hit that goal, that vision that was somehow planted in my life. I don't even know where that came from. It was impossible, but I ran all those numbers multiple times and tried to figure it out. So that's why I was making signs on the side, buying and selling on Craigslist to add money to put into that vision, right? And so I'm like, Lindsay, tell me like the numbers. Like I need to know some numbers like that I could work towards to hit that goal. And she's like, well, from my experience, what I've experienced in my business is that, if you hit Success Club 10 every single month, you could probably be there. Like that's kind of the path that I've been on. And if you hit Success Club 10, you can do it. So I made a commitment. I'm going to hit Success Club 10 every single month. And what I want you guys to understand, like you see in the accolades, I've hit Success Club 20 or Success Club 10 for 120 consecutive months. What I want you to know is it's because it came from a decision. Like I decided that I was going to hit Success Club 10 every single month on that day, on that getting started right call. So I didn't know what that looked like or how it would come, but I made a decision, a solid decision. So I want you to think about your life where you're at right now, and we'll go through questions, but have you made solid decisions about your business? Because that was the solid decision that I made. It was only a couple of days later, I checked into Facebook on my work computer during lunch break, and I saw thousands of people on a cruise ship with my hero, Tony Horton. And I was so mad. Like I was so mad that there were that many people in a tropical paradise with Tony Horton, because I did P90X 4 times by this time. And I was just jealous and I was mad. And so when Lindsay got back from the trip, I was like, Lindsay, what was that? And how do I go on that? And she's like, well, if you hit your Success Club, at the time it was hit Success Club 9 out of 12 months, and you get your invitation to come on the trip. So the next one was Atlantis in the Bahamas. And guys, remember I signed up on April 11th of 2011. So I had exactly 9 months, only 9 months in the rest of that year to hit that goal. So I couldn't wait around and try to like go through all the training and figure everything out before I took action. I had to take action right away, because if I was going to go on that trip, I needed to hit Success Club in April and every month for the rest of the year. So I put on my computer screen at work an image of Atlantis, the beautiful towers, there's like towers with this arch thing. Like I put it up on my screensaver, and every single day I looked at that. And what I want you guys to understand too is that was a goal, right? Just like my $10,000 goal. The reason behind why that goal was so important to me wasn't just like because I was mad that I was in a cubicle and there were people in a tropical paradise with my hero, Tony Horton, but we didn't have the most pleasant honeymoon when we first got married. We were super budgeted. My wife worked for the Hilton. So we got like 3 hotel rooms in Florida in 3 different cities for like 28 to 49 bucks a night. So they're prepaid for with our, before we left. And then we show up in Florida, and I booked like some budget rental car, cheapest thing I could find online. And we only had $500 cash. Well, guess what? This is our first time traveling anywhere. We can't get a rental car without a debit or credit card. So we get dropped off somewhere in the middle of Miami and with the shuttle, and now we can't get the car. And we walked for miles in July with our suitcases until we could find a hotel room. And it took almost half of our $500 cash to pay for that room, and it smelled like smoke, and it was in like a bad part of town. And so like that was our honeymoon. We did it. We made it happen. But I was like, Atlantis is going to be that redemption. Like, I'm going to take her on a real honeymoon, a real trip, and I'm going to make it happen. So it wasn't just like, here's a trip, like I want to earn that. There was a strong reason for me behind that, why I wanted to make that happen and accomplish that. So that's all I'm going to tell in my story. But as we go through the 10 questions that I want to go through with you guys, I'll tell stories. Like, I'm going to ask questions and I will copy and paste them and send them over to Heather later. So you don't have to worry about making sure that you type it out. I would rather you guys, like, if I ask a question, I would rather you guys write what your struggle is or your answer to that question, just some of it briefly in the comments, so that your teammates can see what you're struggling with or what's limiting you or what's stopping you, so that you guys know what each other are struggling with, so you guys can help each other out. But with these 10 questions later, I do want you to make sure that you don't just listen to this call and be like, oh, that was inspiring. I want you to sit down for like 2 hours, like with undistracted time, and really answer these questions deep, because they will change. I believe they will change your life. If you really discover what it is and dial in with that, it'll change your life. Well, I guess let me tell you what happened. The cool thing about having a vision or setting a concrete goal, visualizing it as if it's already happened, and then taking action every single day. Guess what the 1099 was at the end of my first year? $10,800. Isn't that crazy? Like, I didn't know exactly how the compensation plan worked, how much commissions I got for each of the products. Like, I was just working. I loved the workouts. I loved Shakeology. I loved the community. I loved having a new hope for a brighter future and a way out of what I was in, that everybody I talked to just got to hear that passion and excitement and was invited to come do it with me. Right. But it's crazy that that happened like that. And because I said that number, I got to say, Beachbody does not guarantee any level of success or income. Each coach's income is a direct reflection of their diligence, effort, and skill. But what I do want to share is this business compounds as you build a team, and the importance of really building a team. And Heather can attest to this. Like, people are like, when did it click for you? When did you get momentum? When did this click? When did you start building a team? On April 11th, 2011. Like, that's when it started for me. That's when I started building a team. And this is I didn't say this on the last time I did this call for someone, but like, Success Club points back then were 1 point for Shakeology Home Direct order. We didn't have challenge packs. It was 1 Success Club point for Shakeology Home Direct and 2 points if you signed a coach on Shakeology Home Direct. And so this guy that's never used really social media before, from a small town in Idaho Falls, it seemed easier to me to recruit 5 coaches than 10 customers to hit Success Club 10. So like, I started building a team immediately. By the end of my first year, which was 9 months, I had sponsored 53 coaches onto my team. Now, they weren't all builders, but I built my own personal sponsored coach team of 50 coaches in my first year, with no experience in sales and what we do in this business, just a pure passion for the products and excitement about what we do. But the cool thing that I want you to understand about building a team is, because I focused on building a team, the end of that year, we ended at number 16 in the company, and I had no idea how elite points worked. Like, I didn't know how to calculate them. I didn't know what they meant. But by our 14th month, we had our first $2,000 a week income, which is basically 6 figures. So we built a 6-figure business at 14 months into this, into my journey. And my wife and I actually both left our jobs in June of 2012. So I've been, I guess, what you could call a full-time dad for 9 years, and a part-time coach for the remaining of that time, for 10 years now. So that being said, we're going to move on to the first question. Like I said, I will tell little stories as we go through it. I want you guys to comment in your chat thread or ask questions. Number 1 question, the first question is, what is holding me back and why? And this is kind of like personal development, right? Personal development is like the first thing we should be focusing on, I believe, in our business. But the first question is, what is holding me back and why? And there's been different things over my 10 years of coaching that have held me back. But in the beginning, just to give you guys an idea to help you start thinking about what might be holding you back, I don't have enough time, right? I'm already working a 12-hour workday. I don't have internet in my house. I don't have a smartphone. Like, these were all things that were holding me back. And I was able to identify those. And when my why became strong enough on April 11th, 2011, like, I let those go and started building. So it's going to be important that you guys discover what is holding me back and why. And if you know right now, like comment so your teammates can see what you guys are struggling with as you go through that. So that's the first question. And I'm kind of trying to see if you read you guys a little bit. Chelsea says, I feel like my husband isn't supportive of this, worried about my student loan forgiveness. Okay, so she's sharing some things that she's struggling with that are holding her back. So the second one is, what are your greatest fears and why? So what are your greatest fears and why? What are your greatest fears and why? So one of the things for me, one of my greatest fears happened one day. Like in the beginning, it was like, I'm a people pleaser. So I was worried about what people would say about, like, I'm a college dropout. I met my wife at Warped Tour. I was a musician before. I was addicted to cocaine and drank heavily in my early 20s. And so I was afraid of what people that knew me back then would think about me trying to be this inspirational health and fitness business guy, right? So I was worried about that. But one of the biggest things, one of my biggest fears that I discovered as I was starting my business was, I remember it was about 8 months in, and I'll tell a couple stories about 8 months in, because about 8 months in, I got really tired and exhausted and burnt out because I'm working 12-hour. I'm going to paint this picture. I'm at work at 5 in a steel factory. They're not the most pleasant people in the world in a steel factory. I'm in a leadership position where we ship things globally. So like if a machine breaks down in China, like I got to stay overnight with my crew, get it fixed, ship it out, all kinds of stuff because they're losing production. So it's stressful. So when I get home from work, I pick up my 3 little girls, ages 4, 2, and 6 weeks old when I first start coaching. And my wife's gone, so I got to feed them, bathe them, put them in bed, and then I got to work on my business from 8:30 to midnight every night for 7 days a week. That's how I worked my business. And so I'm getting burnt out. And I remember just feeling tired and exhausted. I'll tell another story about this a little bit later, but I remember walking through my job. I started as a sweeper there when my dental lab career ended. And I started as a sweeper. Now I'm running a service department in this factory. And I'm walking through and I'm like, man, I've gone from sweeper to like where I'm at now, leading this department. In the next 5 to 10 years, I could be like the head of engineering. I could be the head foreman. I could be the vice president. The owner's my old church leader growing up. I'm on a great path. Like I could be at the top of this company in the next 5 to 10 years. But as I'm walking through there, I just looked at everybody. Like it was like slow motion. Like I looked at those people, like the head foreman, like he was like 55 years old and he'd been there since he was 16 years old and he looked like he was 70. And guess what? He was there 12 hours a day and he was there on Saturdays with me almost every Saturday. And it was that moment like, okay, I know what he makes, like, because I'm that person, the numbers guy that kind of figured everything out in my job there. And so I'm like, okay, I could spend the next 10 years working really hard here and become that. But like, I looked at his life and no offense to him or anyone that worked there, but I was like, I don't want that. That doesn't align with what I want my life to look like. I'll get there. I'm a hard worker. In the next 10 years, like I know I'll be there. But the thing is, I see what Lindsay Matway is living. I see Melissa McAllister. I see Josh Spencer. And they are like living life on their own terms. Like they work from home. They do what I love doing. They're helping people with these workouts. And that's all they do for their work. And so at that moment, I really just realized like, no matter how hard this is, I'm going to keep putting time, effort, and energy into this because I want to live that life. Even if it takes me 10 years, like it's going to take me over here at my job, like I'm going to put that in because I want that. I want to end up at that end destination instead of that end destination. It's kind of like the image I've seen before where like there's a ladder leaning up some wall. And before you start climbing that ladder, you got to know where that destination is, where that ladder is going to end. Is it at a place you want to be? And so really to answer that, I know there's a long story to this question. What are your greatest fears and why? My greatest fear was ending up like 50 years old, looking like and feeling like I was 70 and working 12-hour days and every Saturday still. I didn't want that. So that became a great fear of mine. So although I discovered that fear in that moment, I realized it helped me stay focused during a super hard and difficult or challenging time in my business to understand where I wanted to go. So, and I love seeing you guys write down your biggest fears: failure, falling off the wagon, fear of success, devoting more time than I already do. One thing to help you eliminate some of these fears, good to identify them. I want you guys to know, like my team that we've developed has 45,000 coaches under it. Okay. What I want you guys to understand is outside of like this call right now, which I'm doing for 1 hour, when I'm done working, I put my phone away and I don't touch it. And I work only from outside of my workout, personal development, meditation, all that time. Like I only work 10 to 2:30. So if you're like if I want to grow a big team and have this big successful team, if you have this fear that's going to take away all of your time, I want you to know that that's not true. Like I'm only working a solid 5 hours a day on my business with the team that we have and hitting big goals. So I just tell that story so that you can kind of begin to eliminate that fear. Okay, next question. And I love reading these, by the way. What motivates you to succeed and evolve as a person? So I want you to answer that question for yourself. What motivates you? Because that's going to be important on determining what success means. And I'll talk about that in a later question. But what motivates you to succeed and evolve as a person? The next question, number 4, is what are the 3 most important things you've learned about yourself? What are the 3 most important things that you've learned about yourself? In 10 years of coaching, it's a quarter of my life. So in 10 years of coaching, I've learned so much. One thing I really learned in my first year where I had to make a solid decision. I'm that obnoxious guy that when you meet them, you're like, is there anything that you don't do? Because like in my life, I'm very introverted. So like if I see something that's inspiring or cool, like I'll work on it for hours and hours until I can learn how to do it myself. Like I play in a band, like I played for 20 years. I can jump garbage cans with a skateboard, not anymore. I backflip on a snowboard, like the coaching thing that we do, playing baseball, like everything. And what I learned is that I can get really good at a lot of things, but when it would get hard or challenging, I would stop right there. I would just get pretty good at a lot of things, but never excel at anything. Does that make sense? It's like in my dental lab career as well. I could like do all the metal work, all the wax work, metal work. I made crown and bridge before. I could do all of it, but I never got really good to where I could do the finished product on like porcelain crowns. Like I could do all of the work getting up to it, but I never mastered the perfection of getting it to that final piece. And it's like with everything in my life. So when I started coaching, I was like, you know what, no matter how hard or challenging or difficult this gets, I'm going to keep growing and evolving and trying to get better. And that kind of goes back to that last question of what motivates you to succeed and evolve. It's like, I'm sick of just being really good at a lot of things. I want to be excellent at what I do with my business. Does that make sense? Kind of how, like, to see how I answer those questions, help you answer those questions. So that's something that I learned about coaching. I never, before personal development, I didn't understand that about myself. We just kind of live life and go through the motions. I didn't realize I was doing that to myself. So that's the 4th question. What are 3 most important things you have learned about yourself? I also learned, I can't remember the book, that when I get to a certain level, there's like a glass ceiling or like a cap, and I self-sabotage. And you guys might experience this in some way. Even with I've been a coach for, like, I should be competing on a fitness stage, being a coach for 11 years. Like I've never missed one day of Shakeology in 10 years of coaching. Like I haven't missed a single day. I could probably say I haven't missed a day of working out except for when I've been sick. Like I'm that consistent in everything that I do. But when I get pretty good results and I'm feeling really good, then I'll start eating a bowl of cereal every night or drinking too much caffeine. And I self-sabotage. I go back down a little bit and then I come back. So that's something that I learned about myself in this process. One of the things I had to identify so that I can, once you identify it through these questions, like what are the 3 most important things you learned about yourself? Then you can be aware of it and you can help yourself get through that. So the 5th question, oh man, I just want to like read these, but then I can't go through everything. So make sure that you guys are checking those out a little bit too. The next question that I want to ask you guys, I told you I was going to talk fast because I want to get through everything, is what lies do you continue to tell yourself? What lies do you continue to tell yourself? And guys, I've been a coach for 10 years. You saw everything that I shared right there. Like I tell myself lies. Like, have you guys heard of Micah Folsom? Do you guys know Micah? Okay, she's like Superstar Diamond 2, or heck, she's probably even Superstar Diamond 3 now. She has 8 business centers, I believe, and then her spouse business center. And here's me, and like 2 years into her business, I went to her team retreat. She's not on my team, by the way. She lives 30 minutes away though. And like I'm teaching an Inspire team, and then she just zooms right past me, right? And I'm just like, so a lie that I tell myself is like, man, she's got something, just some gift that I don't have. And that's cool. Like I'm that person, like I'm happy for her and that's so cool. But there's something that I just don't have that she has that has helped her get to where she's at. Right. Or I tell myself the lie, like, man, it kind of gets a little stressful for me, like to run 4 business centers. Like, I don't know if I want to have 7 business centers, right? That might be a little bit too stressful for me, right? So what are those? Those are like lies that I'm telling myself. So it's important that you identify those lies that you're telling yourself. And that's the question number 5. What lies do you continue to tell yourself? The 6th question is, what do you do that continues to keep limiting your success? And let's see, there's 9 of us on here. I guarantee every single you don't even have to think about this one. You know what you're doing right now that's limiting your success. Whether it's you're not doing your business activity tracker every day, you're not believing in yourself, you're making excuses about not having time, or you're making excuses about my husband doesn't support me, any of these things, right? That you're not enough, and I'm not motivating to others, right? I'm reading that from Melissa. So what are these lies? And you just have to realize that they are not true, okay? And I'm gonna go into detail more on this on one of the other questions. I want to really be vulnerable with you guys on something that I went through in my business and what changed it. But you guys know what's holding you back. So write it out so that you can identify that, be aware of that, share that with your coach, share that with your success partner, and get over it. Like, do whatever personal development you have to do to get past that. Like, it's funny, all of this is personal development, right? And personal development is one of our vital behaviors. Don't just read what Heather's reading. Don't just read what you saw. Scottie Hobbs posted that he finished another book on Instagram stories. Don't just read that book because Scottie did or because Heather did. Like, identify through these questions what you need to work on, and then that's the personal development that you need to do. So the next question that we're going to do is, after what do you do that continues to keep limiting your success? 7, what are you most passionate about in your life? Okay. And what I want to share about, like, look at this. I'm like tossing a baseball as I talk to you. I do this in every call. Like, I sit here and do this with a baseball. Like, when I was a kid, I wanted to play in the world. I wanted to be a professional baseball player. Like, I played baseball. I played in the Little League World Series. One of the sacrifices I made when I started coaching is I had to stop playing local softball league so that I could spend that time building a business. And I discovered later on, like when I stopped pursuing baseball and I started pursuing music, it was for the same reason. And this is I didn't know this until I became a coach and started doing personal development, answering these types of questions. I wanted to play baseball because I, as a kid, was inspired by seeing people, professional baseball players, play on TV and inspire people and play their sport and do their craft. Why did I play music? Like, I loved being on a stage and inspiring people through music, like moving people through music. So why do I so passionately show up on a Tuesday night to do a team call for you guys? Or how 10 years later, am I still passionate about what we do as coaches? I've discovered what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about being on some sort of platform that can inspire other people. So that's what I discovered about myself. And I think it's important to really discover that about yourself, really answer this question, figure out what you're passionate about. Because if you want to do something long-term and truly make an impact and grow into the person that you're supposed to be, you have to know what lights you on fire. There's no way you can do things for 10 years that you're not passionate about. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not passionate about starting new conversations on Instagram with random strangers. I'm introverted. Like, I'm not passionate about that. I'm not passionate about necessarily without having a connection with them saying like, you want to join my challenge group or you want to come be a coach on my team. Like, I'm not passionate about those things. Those things are necessary to build a business. Like, the things in the coach business activity tracker, you have to do them every single day. But I do those things, but I spend more time doing the things that I'm passionate about in this business. And so like, I make sure that I'm constantly growing myself through personal development and applying it to myself and teaching other people so that I can inspire them. Right. So I've discovered what I'm passionate about and I spend more time doing that. So this is going to sound kind of funny. Maybe it won't sound funny, but when I do my business activity tracker, I'm in a hot Epsom bath because I hate doing those activities. I dislike those activities. And so I lay in there and I go through my whole thing, like for an hour and a half on my phone. I do all my invites, I do all my follow-ups, I check into my group, and I do it all from there. And then when I get out, then I do all the other things that I'm passionate about, like doing live video, creating content that will inspire people, reading books and learning and teaching people. So find out what you're passionate about, because if you want to build a business long-term, you have to do something that sets your soul on fire. Like if all I did every day was invite people and start conversations, I'd be like, oh, this is so mundane. Like, I just dislike what I'm doing right now. Right. So you got to do them. Then everything in the business activity tracker is necessary, but you got to do more of the things that light you on fire. So find out what you're passionate about. Number 8, what is the vision for your life? 8th question is, what is the vision for your life? As you guys know, as you saw in today, as I told my story, I had some of my vision already painted out before I ever became a coach. So if you haven't done that yet, it's important to write it out. Like, I want you to dream and visualize like without limitations. Like as if you were a kid again and you're like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I want you to write it out as if that, because as like a former college dropout, drug addict, all of that stuff, like I'm living a life that I would have never seen possible. Like, think about it. I like shared that my big dream and goal was $10,000, like as a coach, my goal. And like right now I employ, like my parents, I retired them from their jobs in their 50s 7 years ago. And I pay them a 6-figure income just to help us out around the house, watch the kids when we need to travel to events. Like, that's something I never dreamed. Like, I didn't even dream of a 6-figure income for myself, but we get to provide that for my parents. I have another full-time employee where he gets to live the life of his dream and they're planning a family. And I know he's going to like have his kid and be able to work from home working for me. And like, that's not something I would have visualized, right? And I say this in the most humble way, because I continue to set goals. As I hit one goal, I set the next goal. And I'll tell you guys, as I set goals, like I put a reason behind it every time. When I was like, I want to make $1 million a year in my business. And we hit that at 4 years into my business. But I was like, I needed a why behind that, because $1 million, I live in my starter home still, guys. Like, I live in the house that Gabby and I bought as newlyweds, 3 months married. So it was like, I needed to have a reason for that. And the reason was for my dad. I was like, okay, when I make $1 million a year, I'm going to tell my dad that he can walk away from his job. And like, his job is going to be come to my house and do all the man stuff while I'm laying in the bathtub on inviting people on Instagram. So like I set a goal and reason for that. And the vision continues to expand. Like, my vision right now that I'm currently working on, I have 2 years to accomplish it. And then I got to make my vision even bigger, is to own $5 million vacation rental homes paid in full, so that I can teach my kids. I have 5 kids now, by the way, how to market, how to manage, how to run the business, the numbers, the profit loss statements for those rental homes, so that when they graduate from school and choose their career path in their life, that they can do what they actually love to do, knowing that they can be provided for by that rental home and what I've taught them throughout their life. Because like I went to dental lab school, not because I wanted to be an orthodontist or a dental lab, because I had a cousin that made six figures and he had a great house and I wanted six figures in a great house, right? Not because I loved, like I hated sitting bunched up in the back of a little thing making teeth for 8 hours a day when I was miserable doing that. So I want them, like two of my daughters are competition dancers. I know one wants to teach dance, and I know dance teachers don't get paid a lot, and they live a lot. My kids have gone to Taiwan. They've gone all over the world with us traveling. And so I know they're going to want to do those types of things and experiences with their families. And dance is not going to pay for that. So I want them to be able to provide for their families and do something they love for work. Does that make sense? So that's the why behind that goal. And we're almost there. We're almost accomplished that. And so I got to get a bigger, I still need to expand my vision. So I want you guys to make sure that you know what the vision for your life is. Like one of the things that I did in my first year and that I teach my coaches to do is write out your ideal day. Like, what do you want your day to look like? What time do you want to wake up? What kind of mood do you want to be in? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be around? What do you want to experience? And like all throughout the day, and really figure out what that looks like, because that'll be kind of lead you into your vision, like your vision of what you want your life to look like. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the next one. 9, what limiting beliefs and stories do you hold on to? Man, I have like 2 stories I want to share with you guys, and I don't have time for 2. What limiting beliefs and stories do you hold on to? I'll let you guys answer that. And then number 10 is, what does success mean to you? What does failure mean to you? Okay. What does success mean to you? What does failure mean to you? And I'm going to tell you guys 2 stories. I'm going to tell 2 stories. About 8 months in, I told you there was a really challenging time where I walked through my work, and I had perspective of what my life would look like if I continued down that path. Well, at this same time, I get sick, because I don't recommend, like, I'm sleeping only 4 hours a night. It's not healthy. And I don't recommend that people do that, but I was desperate to change my situation, and I loved what I was doing. But at this point, because remember, I'm working my business 8:30 to midnight, getting up to go to work at 5. And I get the man cold. And you guys that are married or have boyfriends, you guys know what the man cold is. I nearly died. Like, I'm in bed for 3 days straight. I don't get out. I sleep all day. And it's now Friday, and my wife is like, Scottie, if you just, like, Kina, she's a kindergartner at the time. She's like, if you just go get up, shower, get dressed, walk down to the school bus stop, which is at the end of the cul-de-sac, you'll start to feel better. Like, you'll start feeling better. Just time to get out of bed. So I do that, and I'm walking down the cul-de-sac to pick her up, and the bus pulls up, and I remember like that screeching sound of the school bus doors opening. These 2 little hands grab onto the handrail, and she goes to step down, and she looks up, and she looks at me, and she sees her daddy at the school bus stop. Almost there. I'm still walking there. And the smile came across her face, and I just had tears like streaming down my face. It stopped me. Like, I stopped walking. And it was like, because I realized like how many of these moments have I missed? Like, seeing that smile, like I'm there, I want you guys, like, I'm working 12-hour days in kind of a harsh environment. I come home and I'm like, feed them, bathe them, change the diapers, listen to Lindsay's coach webinar while I'm like washing dishes, put the kids in bed as fast as I can so I can work on my business. Like, I'm there, but I'm not there. That makes sense? And I'm like, man, how many of these moments have I missed? But more importantly, how many more will I continue to miss if I don't push through this pain? Like, if I don't push through this, because this is where my vision became bigger for my life than $10,000 and bringing my wife home. Like, it was that moment I was like, I'm never going to miss an opportunity, like, to be with my kids and to be present for them. And that's where I decided, like, not just my wife coming home, like, I'm going to make this my full-time job. There's not ever going to be a boss that can tell me I can't go to daddy donuts with daddy at the school or anything like that. Like, I'm going to make this happen. And so that's when my vision of my life became greater. And you might have heard the quote before, like, the two greatest days in your life are the day that you're born and the day you find out why. And that's where I really discovered that this was my purpose as a coach. that this is what I was meant to do. But it was like something greater. I was like, I'm going to come home from work. This is going to be my full-time job. So it's another decision, right? Like, remember when I tell my story, I'm going to tell you, this is a decision I made in that moment. But I realized, like, if I can do it, like this introverted, like awkward ex-drug addict, college dropout can completely change his life with a home fitness program, a meal plan, Shakeology, a community of incredible people. If I can completely change my life around and build a business inspiring other people, I could inspire, mentor, train anybody to do this. Legitimately anybody. Any of you guys, there's 8 of you on here with me. If I can do this, any of you guys can do it. When you really discover through these questions what's holding you back and stopping you, get clear on where you want to go and make a decision and do it. Like Lindsay, my coach Lindsay Matway says, your superhero power is like consistency, like just believing in it and then staying consistent with it. So that's where I really decide, like I really realize why I'm here. Like, why am I here on a Tuesday night, 10 years later, teaching a team? Like, you guys are not a part of our team. Like, because this is my passion. This is what lights me on fire. And I was talking with I have to communicate with my wife because I usually work only 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and I'm off the phone by the time the kids get home. I'm like, Gabby, like, I really feel like obviously she spoke on my team, but this is doing so much for me, teaching on other teams, because it's what I love to do. Like, it's my passion. And when I'm doing things I'm passionate about, miraculously, my business grows, even though this is not directly connected with my business, but the energy I create by doing something I love pours into my social media posts tomorrow and my invites tomorrow. So it's really where I discovered why I do what I do. I'm going to tell you one last story because it's like 3 minutes to the hour. I try to keep it at an hour, but this story will take like 10 minutes. Is that okay? Like, I'm going to be real vulnerable with you guys about a hard time in my business. And this has to do with limiting beliefs. I don't want you to think that when you're at where Heather's at or at where I'm at, you don't have problems with your mindset or your belief or any of those things. We all do. What I want you guys to understand, I have discovered for that last question about what does success mean to you, I decided, like, success has nothing to do with my rank, how much I'm making, whether my coaches are hitting Success Club, whether I'm not. Like, I've hit Success Club 10 for 120 months. I might miss it one day and that streak might be gone. We were elite 6 years and then missed it. Like, does that mean I'm not successful when that happens? No, but a lot of times our minds tell us that we're not successful or there's something wrong with me. So I created in my mind what success means. And success, it's a rule. Success for me means that I know what my goals and vision are. I'm growing myself every single day and I'm planting seeds of growth in other people. So as long as I'm doing that every single day, or I'm clear on that, then I am successful. Right? And that helps with a lot of things that we talk through about fears of failure or whatnot. So as long as I'm clear on that, I'm successful. But I wavered in that a little bit. Won't go into details because there's no need to, but in 2016, well, you heard on the National Wake Up Call, Christina Delgado was talking about 2017 was a rough year and there was the I Am Team Beachbody movement. Well, in 2016, I had 14 of my diamond and above coaches go to another network marketing company. And I went from 14-star diamond, like one away from superstar diamond, to a 4-star diamond coach team. And it like rocked my world, like where in my belief, because I started creating stories in my mind, limiting beliefs, we'll call them our stories, that I'm not a good coach. Like, I'm not a good leader. If I would have been better, if I would have been more of a not introverted person at our team retreats and spent more time or whatever, all these things, right? They would not have left. I created this story. It's not true, right? But I created this story that I'm not a very good leader, or these coaches would not have left. And then we missed elite. And I'm like, oh, there's more proof that like there's something wrong with me and I'm not great at leading. So I started creating that belief. We missed elite. I worked hard. We missed elite again, right? And we're getting towards the end of the next year. And I have a call. It's like the first week of December with Kayshawn Graves. She's my corporate mentor. She's like, Scottie, are we going to hit elite this year? Like, how are we looking on your points? And I'm like, not good, Kayshawn, not good at all. Like, if I look at the points, to be honest with you, I have to sign 10 coaches this month. Every single one of them needs to have one Success Club point, and then every single one of them needs to hit Success Club, all 10 of them. And she's like, let's do it. And I'm like, okay, Sean, you don't get it. Like this year, and this is where I want to be vulnerable with you guys. What that mindset and those limiting beliefs did to me is that year I signed 3 to 5 coaches every single month consistently. I'm not a huge numbers person. But what happened was for 8 months straight. So from like the beginning of March until this date, beginning of December, not one of those coaches had one Success Club point. Not one. Okay. So imagine signing like 25 to 30 coaches and not one of them sell one challenge pack in 8 months. Feeding my belief of like, man, I just don't have it. Like I lost it. Whatever it was I was doing before is gone. Like maybe I'm out. Like not out, like I'm going to quit, but like maybe I just lost it. Right. So I'm talking with Kayshawn and she's like, well, what are you doing with your coaches? And I'm like, okay, I send them to these videos that in the Coach Online office, they're like the 25-minute, they take lessons. She's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm doing a getting started right call with every one of them. What are you talking about? And I was like, I talk about this and that, this and that. And we make an action for this. And I do lead a team call every Wednesday. I put them in a pod thread as new coaches and we chat. And she's like, you're doing like everything that the elite coaches are doing, right? You're doing everything they're doing. So I just don't get it. And then it came out of me to her. Like, I just feel like I'm not a good, like, I just don't know how to train coaches anymore or something. Like something's changed. I just don't get it. I'm not a good leader. And so she did something to me that was very important. And I think you guys might need to hear it from your coach sometime or just tell it to yourself. She's just said, stop it. Like, stop telling yourself that. Like, so I needed to be reminded. She's like, do you think you could have led a top 10 team if you didn't know how to lead, if you weren't a good leader? Do you think you would have had an elite team for 5 years if you weren't a good leader? So she reminded me of former wins. So whether it's in Beachbody or not, remind yourself of former wins. You had a kid without knowing how to have a kid, and they're doing pretty good. So like you can figure things out. Everything's figure outable, right? So just remind yourself that you know you have what it takes. So she reminded me of that. And then the next thing was that's why we did 10 questions today. She asked me a very good question. She said, Scottie, what makes you feel like that? What's making you feel like you're not a good leader? And I said, well, every day, one of my like habits, I guess, is I hop on my memories on Facebook and like I get inspiration from like former posts that did really good. And I'll like take it and I'll recraft it and rewrite it and create new content, because if it was good then, it's going to teach and add value to my new audience now. So I do that. She's like, okay, that's great and all. But I was like, but what happens is I see like Success Club trips or recognition posts with like 20 people standing in front of a Success Club trip cruise, and like there's only like 4 of us left on the team and the other one's left to another business. And it makes me feel like, oh, there's so-and-so, like they left, like I'm not a good lead. If I would have been a better leader, they wouldn't have left. Or I'd see like 3 new diamond coaches in 1 week, right? On a recognition post. And then this year I have 0 new diamonds in the entire year. So like, I feel like, oh, there it is again. I'm not a good leader. Back then I was doing that. Now I'm doing nothing. And she's like, well, Scottie, what if instead of like feeling like you're not a good leader when you see those, what if you just, every time you see someone's name in your memories or recognition, you just list 3 things that you're grateful for that you experienced with them. And so I just had to change that narrative. So an example, I won't say their name, but I'm like, I see a recognition post of Success Club All-Star for, 24 months or something, and they're not with me anymore. I would look at her picture and instead of like scrolling past fast and be like, oh, that sucked that they're not with me anymore, I would look at it and be like, I'm so grateful for the time I spent with so-and-so. Like when she came onto our team in 2012, she had Success Club 10 every single month. Within a year and a half, she left her corporate job and she was home with her 2 daughters. We got to do a national wake-up call together where we did an invite script, and we taught coaches how to do a phone call and ask the right questions and do the invite process. And because she had Success Club 10 every single month and built an elite team in 2 years, like us like she played a huge role in us achieving top 10 that year. And I'm so grateful for that time I spent with her. Right. So I started doing that that was part of my new routine, is to do that with every single person that I saw in my memories and my time hop or memories. And you guys, you want to know what happened? That was the beginning of December in 2019. I signed 8 coaches in December, not my normal 3 to 5. I signed 8 coaches in what would be a harder month of December. And 5 of them hit Success Club. 5 of them hit Success Club. Not 1 point, but hit Success Club. We didn't hit elite, but guys, I didn't train them any different. I didn't send them a new coach training. I didn't do our getting started right call. I didn't make our chat thread any different. What changed? My mindset and my belief shifted everything. So what I want you guys to understand about your business, like the business activity tracker is so simple. What we do is so simple. Get results for yourself, grow yourself with personal development, find and connect with people, help them get results. And then either they're lifelong customers that will refer people, or you help them become coaches, and then you teach them how to pay that forward. It's so simple what we do, right? And I didn't have to change anything about the process, but yet the result was entirely different, right? The result was entirely different because the mindset shifted. So that's why these questions are so important, because we need to identify what it is that is holding us back, and then come up with a system or something. Like a system for me was, instead of telling myself, you're not a good leader every time that you saw these coaches on these memories, but instead of doing that, I needed to just remind myself of or just do something more positive, which was 3 things that I'm grateful for that helps. And this is I won't show it to you. There's a great book that actually teaches that concept. I just forgot it. Right? We forget the things we learn in our personal development. It's called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Anker. It's an incredible book. I think it'll help you guys with a lot of the things I read as we went through the comments today. Happiness Advantage is a great one. And like I said, remember, if it's not a good book for you, it's not a good book for you. Work on what you need to work on. But it really teaches you those simple principles and concepts of identifying and being grateful for things, or looking for things that are positive, and you'll see them, or you'll begin to see them come into your life. So with that being said, Heather, we're past the hour, and I lead the youth and I'm like 7 minutes late, but there's 3 of us youth leaders, so I'm okay being slightly late.
I appreciate it. And I know that this went way over, but I loved every part of it. And I think we all needed to hear these 10 questions tonight. So I appreciate it. And I'll get with Scottie to get all the questions, you guys, so you can have those for your team. Does anybody have last minute questions or anything for Scottie before he leaves? No? Okay, good. You are free to go, Scottie. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'll get this up on YouTube. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next week too, okay? Bye.
See you guys later.